The maximum child tax credit is $2,000 for each qualified child. This is the case for both 2024 federal tax returns to be filed in 2025 and 2025 tax returns due in 2026. So all of the information in this video is the same for tax years 2024 and 2025. We're going to take a look at the credit to see what it takes to get the maximum benefit amount. We will also take a brief look at two other credits that you might qualify for if you have dependents. Out of the $2,000 maximum child tax credit, $1,700 is refundable. What this means is even if you don't owe any taxes or owe less than $2,000, you can get up to $1,700 back per child. The $1,700 refundable portion is also called the additional child tax credit. If you claim the additional child tax credit, by law, the IRS can't release your income tax refund until mid-February or later. By the way, please keep in mind that credits are subtracted dollar for dollar from the final amount due on your federal tax return, which reduces the amount that you owe. So credits are usually better than deductions. If you're married filing jointly and your modified adjusted gross income is $400,000 or lower, or if it's $200,000 or lower for all other filers, you should qualify to receive the maximum of $2,000 per child. If your modified adjusted gross income is more than the limit, your child tax credit will be reduced by $50 for every $1,000 above the limit amount until it reaches zero. So even at a higher income level, you might be able to get a partial credit. If your child qualifies, you don't have to do anything special on your 1040 federal tax return to receive the credit outside of filling out Schedule 8812. But you do need these 8 things to qualify. First, it has to be a dependent child under the age of 17 by the end of the year. The child cannot provide more than half of their own support during the year. The child has to be your biological or adopted child, stepchild, foster child, biological or adopted sibling, step-sibling, or half-sibling, or a child of one of these people. So that could be a niece or a nephew or a grandchild. And no, you cannot take the child tax credit for kids of a boyfriend or a girlfriend, even if you live together. The child must be a dependent and they cannot file a joint tax return. The only exception for filing a joint tax return is if they need to claim a refund for withheld income taxes or estimated taxes that they paid. In order to claim the child as a dependent, you had to have provided at least half of the child's financial support. The child has to live with you for more than half of the year. The child must have a Social Security number issued before the due date of your tax return. And finally, the child has to be a U.S. citizen, a U.S. national, or a U.S. resident alien. Now, before we go, I do want to mention a couple of other credits that you might be able to take. There's the Child and Dependent Care Credit, and there's the credit for other dependents. If you don't qualify for the child tax credit, you still might qualify for the credit for other dependents. You cannot claim the credit for other dependents if you claim the child tax credit or additional child tax credit. The maximum credit that you can get for each dependent is $500. In order to qualify for the credit for other dependents, the dependent can be any age. The dependent must have a Social Security number or a tax identification number. The dependent has to be a U.S. citizen, national, or resident alien. The dependent can be your parents or other relatives. As a matter of fact, they can be dependents who are living with you who aren't even related to you. As long as you can claim the person as a dependent on your 1040 tax return, you should qualify for the credit. If your income is over $200,000 or $400,000 if you're married filing jointly, the credit will decrease. If you don't know whether you can claim the credit for other dependents, the IRS has a tool that you can use to see if you qualify. I will include a link in the description box. You can claim the credit for other dependents in addition to the earned income credit and the child and dependent care credit. With the child and dependent care credit, if you paid for daycare so that you and your spouse, if you're filing jointly, can work or look for work, you might be able to claim this credit. You can possibly get a credit for child and dependent care expenses based on a percentage of the amount that you spent, and it's based on your income level. So you and your spouse, if you file jointly, had to have lived in the United States more than half of the year. The dependent has to be 12 years of age or younger, or they can be any age if they are incapable of self-care. If you have dependent care expenses for a spouse who cannot take care of themselves, they qualify as well. In any case, the dependent has to live with you more than half of the year. The tax credits mentioned in this video aren't the only things that might affect your federal tax return and the refund that you can expect to receive. If you want to know about some new tax changes, please watch the video in the upper left of your screen. Take care.